You think you have it hard. Let me tell you what hard really means. Imagine waking up in a place where a simple cut on your hand could kill you within a week, where your children work 12-hour shifts underground because if they don't, your family starves, where drinking water gives you cholera, where there's no police to call when someone robs you at gunpoint, and where being a woman, a child, or the wrong race means you have almost no rights at all. That was early California. And if you had been born there between 1848 and 1880, your life would have been unrecognizable compared to the one you're living right now. This isn't a story about adventure or opportunity. That's the sanitized version they sold you in school. The real story is about suffering, exploitation, violence, and early death. The real story is about what happens when tens of thousands of desperate people are thrown into a lawless territory with no infrastructure, no medicine, no safety, and no mercy. Most of the people who went to California during the gold rush didn't get rich. They got sick. They got robbed. They got exploited. They died young, poor, and forgotten. And the ones who suffered most weren't outlaws or risk-takers. They were ordinary people, families, workers, immigrants, women, children. People just trying to survive in a system designed to break them. You are extraordinarily lucky you weren't born in early California. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why. Because once you see what life was actually like, what people actually endured just to make it through a single day, you'll never take your modern life for granted again. Let's go back. Let's see what you escaped. It's 1848. Gold is discovered at Sutter's mill in Coloma, California. Word spreads, and within months the world descends on California like a plague of locusts. By 1849, over 80,000 people arrive. They come from every corner of the globe, Americans from the East Coast, Chinese laborers, Mexican miners, European immigrants, freed and enslaved Black Americans, Chilean fortune seekers, Australian adventurers. They travel for months. Some sail around the deadly Cape Horn, losing family members to storms and disease. Others cross the disease-ridden Isthmus of Panama, where yellow fever and malaria kill thousands. Still others walk across the entire American continent in wagon trains, burying loved ones along the trail from cholera, starvation, and exhaustion. And when they finally arrive in California, what do they find? Nothing. No cities, no government, no law, no infrastructure, no hospitals, no clean water, no housing. San Francisco in 1849 is a mud pit filled with tents and wooden shacks. Ships rot abandoned in the harbor because the crews deserted to search for gold. The streets, if you can call them that, are open sewers filled with garbage, human waste, and horse manure. There are no building codes, no fire departments, no sanitation systems. People live packed together in conditions that would be illegal today for animals, and California isn't even a state yet. It won't become one until 1850. That means for years, it's essentially a lawless frontier territory. Makeshift governments form and collapse. Vigilante mobs rule the streets. Violence is the only reliable form of justice. The population explodes from under 15,000 non-native residents in 1848 to over 250,000 by 1852. But nothing is built to support them. No schools, no courts, no social services, no safety net of any kind, and the gold, the easy surface gold, is gone within 2 years. By 1850, you need industrial equipment, capital, and manpower to extract what's left. The dream of striking it rich with a pan and a pickaxe is already dead. So what do people do? They take whatever work they can find. They dig in mines for wages that barely cover food. They build railroads through mountains, dying by the hundreds. They work in laundries, saloons, and brothels. They do backbreaking, dangerous labor just to survive another week. And if you're weak, if you're sick, old, female, a child, an immigrant, or the wrong race, your chances of survival plummet. Because early California doesn't reward hard work. It rewards ruthlessness. It rewards strength. It rewards being white, male, healthy, and willing to do whatever it takes. Everyone else, you're fuel for the machine. The environment itself is hostile. The summers are scorching. The winters in the mining camps are brutal, with snow piling up 10 feet high and temperatures dropping well below freezing. Floods wash away entire camps. Landslides bury miners alive. Earthquakes shake the ground without warning. This is the world you would have been born into, a world with no mercy, no second chances, no safety net. A world where your value is measured only by how much work you can do before your body gives out. And for most people, that wasn't very long. Let's talk about your day, your actual lived experience if you had been born in early California. You wake up before dawn, not because you want to, because if you don't eat. You're sleeping in a tent if you're lucky. More likely, you're in a wooden shack with gaps in the walls wide enough to see through. There's no insulation, no heating, no electricity, no running water. In the winter, you wake up with frost on your blanket. In the summer, the heat inside is suffocating. You step outside, there's no bathroom. You walk to the edge of camp and relieve yourself in a ditch that dozens of other people use. There's no toilet paper. You use whatever you can find, a rag, a leaf, maybe nothing at all. You don't wash your hands because there's no clean water nearby. Let's talk about water. Because water is everything, and in early California it's a death trap. The rivers and streams are contaminated. Upstream, mining operations pour mercury, arsenic, and other toxic chemicals into the water. Downstream, mining camps dump human waste, garbage, and dead animals into the same rivers. And you're drinking from it because you have no choice. Every time you take a sip, you're risking cholera, typhoid, dysentery, or poisoning. But if you don't drink, you die of dehydration, so you drink, and you get sick, and you keep drinking anyway. Food. If you have money, you can buy overpriced, low-quality supplies from merchants who know you're desperate. A single egg costs $1 in 1849. That's roughly $35 in today's money. A pound of flour costs $2 to $4. A simple meal of beans, salt pork, and stale bread might cost you a full day's wages, and that's if you can afford to eat at all. Many people go days without a proper meal. Malnutrition is rampant. Scurvy, caused by lack of vitamin C, is common. Your gums bleed. Your teeth fall out. Old wounds reopen. You're constantly weak, dizzy, and sick. Fresh vegetables, almost impossible to find. Fruit, a luxury most people never taste. You eat the same rotting, salt-preserved food day after day, month after month, until your body starts breaking down from the lack of nutrition. And your clothes, you wear the same outfit for weeks, maybe months. There are no washing machines, no detergent. You wash your clothes in the same contaminated river you drink from, and they never really get clean. They're stiff with dirt, sweat, and grime. They develop holes. They smell. But you can't afford new ones, so you keep wearing them until they literally fall apart. Let's talk about shelter, because most people in early California don't have what you'd call a home. If you're in a mining camp, you're living in a canvas tent on dirt. No floor, no furniture, no privacy. When it rains, water seeps through the canvas and floods the ground beneath you. You sleep in mud, your blankets get soaked. Everything you own is damp and moldy. If you're in San Francisco, you might be in a boarding house, a room the size of a closet that you share with 3 or 4 other men. You sleep in shifts because there aren't enough beds. The walls are thin. You hear everything. The smell of unwashed bodies and overflowing chamber pots is suffocating. There's no privacy, no safety, no comfort, and the cold. In the Sierra Nevada mining camps, winter temperatures drop to 10 or 20 degrees below zero. You have no heater, no warm coat, no insulated boots. You huddle around a small fire if you can afford firewood, which costs as much as food. If you can't, you just endure the cold and hope you don't get frostbite. Hygiene is non-existent. You don't shower. There are no showers. You don't bathe regularly because heating water is a luxury and finding clean water is nearly impossible. You smell. Everyone smells. Lice and bedbugs are constant companions. Fleas infest your clothing and bedding. You itch constantly, and scratching leads to infections. You live in filth. You breathe in smoke, dust, and fumes. You're surrounded by rats, flies, and disease. And this isn't a bad week. This is every single day of your life. You don't get a weekend. You don't get a vacation. You don't get a break. You survive. Or you don't. That's it. That's your daily reality. And if you think that sounds unbearable, just wait, because we haven't even talked about work yet. Now let's talk about how you earn a living in early California, because work isn't just hard, it's deadly, it's exploitative, and for most people it leads nowhere. You've been told the gold rush was about opportunity, that anyone could strike it rich if they just worked hard enough. That's a lie. By 1850, the easy gold is gone. What's left requires expensive equipment, hydraulic hoses, rock crushers, industrial sluices. You can't afford any of that. So you work for someone who can. You become a wage laborer, and your job is to destroy your body for pennies. Let's say you're working in a mine. You wake up at 4 a.m. and work until dark. That's 12 to 16 hours a day, 6 or 7 days a week. You're underground in poorly ventilated tunnels, breathing in rock dust and chemical fumes. The air is so bad that your lungs burn with every breath. You cough constantly. Black lung disease is common. Silicosis, where your lungs literally turn to stone, is a death sentence. The tunnels are unstable. Cave-ins happen regularly. Sometimes a support beam cracks and the ceiling collapses, burying you alive. Sometimes there's an explosion from misfired dynamite. Sometimes the tunnel floods and you drown in the dark. There are no safety regulations, no inspections, no workers' compensation. If you die, your body is pulled out and someone else takes your place the next day. Your family gets nothing. And how much are you paid for this? Maybe $3 to $6 a day if you're white and speak English. That sounds like a lot until you realize that a loaf of bread costs $1, a pair of boots costs $20, and rent for a shared bunk in a filthy shack costs $50 a month. You're spending everything you earn just to survive. There's nothing left to save, nothing to send home, nothing to build a future with. And if you're Chinese, you're paid even less, maybe $1 a day. You're doing the most dangerous work, laying explosives, hanging off cliffs, tunneling through granite mountains for the railroad. You're dying at twice the rate of white workers. And when you die, nobody records it. Nobody cares. If you're Mexican or Native American, you might not get paid at all. You're cheated, threatened, or simply forced to work. And if you complain, you're beaten or killed. The legal system won't protect you. Courts won't hear your case. You have no rights. If you're a woman, your options are even worse. Respectable jobs for women barely exist. You can cook, clean, wash laundry, or sew, but you'll earn a fraction of what men earn, maybe 50 cents a day, and you'll be harassed, groped, and propositioned constantly. Many women are forced into prostitution because it's the only work that pays enough to survive. And even then, you're controlled by pimps who take most of your earnings. You're abused by clients. You're arrested by corrupt police who demand sexual favors or bribes. You're exposed to disease with no medical care. And society blames you, not the system that forced you into this, but you. Children work too. There's no childhood in early California. If you're 8 years old, you're hauling water, cleaning stables, working in mines, or serving in saloons. You're paid almost nothing. You're abused. And if you're orphaned or abandoned, you're on your own. There's no foster care, no social services, no protection. And here's the trap: you can't leave. Getting to California cost everything you had. You sold your farm. You spent months traveling. You arrived with nothing but hope. And now you're stuck. You can't afford a ticket home. You can't even afford to move to the next town, so you stay. You work yourself into the ground, and you hope that maybe somehow tomorrow will be better, but it won't be. Because the system isn't designed to help you. It's designed to extract every ounce of labor from your body and then discard you when you're used up. The people who get rich in early California aren't the workers. They're the merchants selling shovels at 500% markup. They're the landlords charging extortionate rent. They're the mine owners and railroad barons who exploit cheap labor. They're the politicians and land speculators. Wealth in early California is built on the broken bodies of people who died poor, exhausted, and anonymous. And if you were weak, if you got injured, if you got sick, if you were too young, too old, too female, or the wrong race, you didn't just struggle. You disappeared. Death in early California isn't rare. It's routine. It's everywhere. And it's brutal. Let's start with disease, because disease kills more people than anything else. Cholera arrives in 1850, brought by ships from Panama. It spreads like wildfire through the overcrowded, filthy mining camps and cities. Cholera is one of the most horrifying ways to die. You start with stomach cramps. Within hours, you're vomiting and losing fluids so fast that your skin turns gray. Your eyes sink into your skull. You're fully conscious as your body shuts down, organ by organ. There's no cure. Doctors don't even understand what causes it. They try bloodletting, opium, and alcohol. Nothing works. You either survive or you don't. Most don't. In San Francisco alone, cholera kills over 1,000 people in the summer of 1850. Bodies pile up faster than gravediggers can bury them. Mass graves are dug. People are terrified to drink water, but there's no alternative. Then there's typhoid, dysentery, tuberculosis, pneumonia, smallpox, malaria. These diseases are everywhere, and in early California, catching one is often a death sentence. Tuberculosis, TB, is especially common. You cough up blood. You lose weight. You waste away slowly over months or years. And you're contagious, spreading it to everyone around you in the cramped, unventilated spaces where people live. Scurvy is epidemic among miners. You're eating nothing but salt pork, beans, and hardtack for months. No fresh fruit. No vegetables. Your gums bleed. Your teeth fall out. Wounds that healed years ago suddenly reopen. If you don't get vitamin C, you die. But fresh produce costs a fortune and spoils quickly. So miners just accept scurvy as a fact of life. Injuries are just as deadly as disease. If you're working in a mine, you're surrounded by hazards every minute. Cave-ins, explosions, falling rocks, equipment malfunctions. One wrong move and you're crushed, buried, or blown apart. And medical care, it's almost non-existent. There are some doctors, but most are poorly trained or outright frauds. They're barbers, con men, or opportunists who figured they could make money off desperate people. They use dirty instruments. They don't wash their hands. They don't understand infection or sterilization. If you break your leg, they might set it, but without anesthesia, without antibiotics, without proper technique. Infection is almost guaranteed, and infection in the 1850s means amputation or death. Amputations are done with a saw, a bottle of whiskey, and a few men to hold you down. You scream. You pass out from pain. And even if you survive the surgery, you'll probably die from sepsis within days. If you're not white, your chances are even worse. Many white doctors refuse to treat Chinese, Mexican, Native American, or black patients. Hospitals turn you away. You're left to suffer and die without any care at all. Childbirth is particularly deadly for women. There are no hospitals. No trained midwives in most areas. No anesthesia. No sterilization. No emergency interventions. Women give birth in tents, in filth, with no medical support. If something goes wrong, if there's hemorrhaging, if the baby is breech, if there's infection, both mother and child often die. Infant mortality is staggering. Many babies don't survive their first year. Parents bury multiple children and just accept it as normal. Death is so common that people become numb to it. You see bodies in the street and you step over them. You hear about a coworker dying and you shrug. You bury a friend and you're back at work the next morning. Because in early California, life is cheap, especially if you're poor, sick, foreign, female, young, or old. There's no social safety net. No insurance. No compassion. You survive on your own strength or you die, and most people die. Early California is one of the most violent places in American history, and the violence isn't random. It's built into the fabric of society. Murder is shockingly common. In San Francisco between 1849 and 1856, there are over 1,200 recorded murders. That's more than one murder every single day in a city of only 30,000 to 50,000 people. And those are just the recorded murders. Hundreds more go unreported because the victim was Chinese, Native American, Mexican, or simply unnamed and unidentified. People kill over gold, over insults, over card games, over nothing at all. Arguments in saloons turn into shootings. Disputes over mining claims end in stabbings. Drunken fights leave men dead in the mud. And law enforcement, it's a joke. There are sheriffs, but they're often corrupt, outnumbered, or simply don't care. Police forces are tiny, underfunded, and ineffective. Courts are backlogged and frequently biased. Criminals know they can get away with almost anything, so they do. In response, communities form vigilante committees, groups of armed citizens who take justice into their own hands. They arrest suspects, hold kangaroo court trials, and execute people in the street. No judge, no jury, no legal authority. In San Francisco in 1851 and again in 1856, vigilante committees essentially take over the city. They execute dozens of men, some guilty, some probably innocent. They exile others. They rule through fear and intimidation. And while some vigilantes genuinely believe they're restoring order, many use it as cover to eliminate business rivals, settle personal grudges, or terrorize minority communities. Chinese immigrants are constant targets. They're robbed, beaten, and murdered with impunity. Their businesses are burned. Their homes are destroyed. And when they try to seek justice, the courts refuse to listen. California law literally prohibits Chinese people from testifying against white people in court. That means a white person can rob, assault, or kill a Chinese person in broad daylight, and there's no legal recourse. Native Americans have it even worse. The state of California pays bounties for Native American scalps. Militias are formed specifically to hunt down and exterminate entire villages. Between 1848 and 1870, California's Native American population drops from around 150,000 to under 30,000. This is genocide, state-sponsored, systematic genocide, and it's celebrated. Mexicans who were living in California before it became part of the United States are systematically driven off their land. Legal claims are ignored, deeds are declared invalid, and when legal methods fail, violence is used. Mexican miners and ranchers are lynched. Their families are terrorized and displaced. Women face relentless sexual violence. Assault is rampant and almost never prosecuted. Women are viewed as property. If you're traveling alone, you're assumed to be a prostitute and treated as such. If you're married, your husband legally owns you. Domestic violence is considered a private matter. Men beat their wives and society looks the other way. There are no shelters, no restraining orders, no legal protection. Theft is constant. You can't trust anyone. Old dust is stolen from pockets. Supplies are looted from camps. Homes are burgled while you're at work. Banks fail regularly, taking people's life savings with them. Con men sell fake mining claims. Merchants sell poisoned food and contaminated medicine. Snake oil salesmen peddle cures that kill people, and there's no accountability, no consumer protection, no fraud investigation. You get scammed, you lose everything, and that's just how it is. Violence in early California isn't an aberration. It's the norm. When you create a society with no functioning law, no accountability, no protection for the vulnerable, and no consequences for the powerful, this is what you get. And the people who suffer most are the ones who can't defend themselves. The sick, the poor, the foreign, the female. The young, the old. If you're weak, you're a victim. And there's no one coming to save you, that's just reality. If being born in early California was hard for everyone, it was exponentially worse if you were a woman, a child, or an immigrant. Let's start with women. In 1850, men outnumber women in California by at least 12 to 1. You might think that makes women valuable, and in a twisted way it does, but not in a way that gives them power or safety. Women are treated as commodities, as property, as tools for men's profit and pleasure. If you're a woman in early California, your options are brutally limited. You can marry, but marriage means you lose all legal rights. Your husband owns your property, your wages, your body. He can beat you, rape you, abandon you. And you have almost no legal recourse, or you can work. But respectable jobs for women pay almost nothing. Cooking, cleaning, laundry, sewing, backbreaking work for 50 cents or $1 a day. You work 16-hour days in brutal conditions and still can't afford basic necessities. So thousands of women turn to prostitution, not by choice, but because it's the only work that pays enough to survive. And life as a prostitute is hell. You're controlled by pimps and madams who take most of your money. You're beaten by clients. You're arrested by police who then extort, assault, or rape you. You're exposed to syphilis and other diseases with no treatment. You're reviled by society, even though the same society created the conditions that forced you into this. Chinese women have it even worse. Thousands are trafficked to California and forced into sexual slavery. They're bought and sold like livestock. They're locked in brothels. They're raped dozens of times a day. If they try to escape, they're hunted down, beaten, or killed. And society blames them, not the traffickers, not the men who buy them, the women themselves. Now let's talk about children. There's no childhood in early California. If you're a child, you work, period. You work in mines, hauling ore and pushing carts. You work in fields picking crops. You work in factories and laundries. You do dangerous, exhausting labor for little or no pay. There are no child labor laws, no mandatory schooling, no protections of any kind. If your parents die or abandon you, you're on your own. You beg, you steal, you starve. Some children are adopted by people who use them as unpaid servants. Others are sold into prostitution. Many die on the streets, forgot. Child abuse is rampant and completely normalized. Children are beaten by parents, employers, and strangers. They're sexually exploited. They're treated as less than human. And no one intervenes because children are considered property. Orphans have it worst of all. There are some orphanages, but they're overcrowded, underfunded, and often abusive. Many children run away and live on the streets, forming gangs for survival. Now let's talk about immigrants. If you're Chinese, you're building the transcontinental railroad. You're doing the jobs white workers refuse, laying explosives, tunneling through mountains, working on sheer cliffs. You're paid half as much as white workers. You're housed in the worst conditions. You're dying at twice the rate. And you're legally excluded from society. The foreign miners tax targets Chinese miners specifically. You can't testify in court. You can't become a citizen. You can't own land. You're scapegoated for every social problem. When the economy crashes in the 1870s, white workers blame you for taking jobs, even though you're doing work they refuse to do for wages they wouldn't accept. Race riots break out. Chinese neighborhoods are burned. Chinese people are lynched. And law enforcement does nothing or actively participates. If you're Mexican, you're being driven off land your family owned for generations. If you're Native American, you're facing systematic extermination. And if you're black, free, or enslaved, you're navigating a society that can't decide whether to allow slavery but definitely agrees on racism. Women, children, and immigrants in early California don't just face hardship. They face systematic dehumanization, exploitation, and violence. And there's no escape, no protection, no justice. You're simply considered less than human, and you're treated accordingly. If you want to understand just how merciless early California could be, look at the winter of 1856-1857. By this time, the gold rush dream is dead. The easy gold is long gone. The economy is in free fall. Businesses are closing. Banks are failing. Thousands of men who came to California with dreams of wealth are now broke, jobless, and trapped. And then winter hits. In the Sierra Nevada mining camps, snow piles up 10, 15, even 20 feet high. Temperatures plunge well below zero. And thousands of men are stuck in those camps with no money, no food, no heat, and no way out. They're starving. Scurvy is epidemic. Frostbite is common. Men huddle in freezing tents and literally wait to die. Some try to walk out through the snow. Most don't make it. Their frozen bodies are found months later when the snow melts. In San Francisco, things aren't much better. The city is flooded with unemployed workers. There are no jobs, no relief programs, no government aid, no charity that can handle the scale of suffering. Men sleep in doorways and alleys. They beg for food. They steal to survive. And when they're caught, vigilante committees hang them in the street as examples. Chinese workers are expelled from mining camps by mobs of white miners who blame them for the economic collapse. They're forced to walk through the mountains in winter with nothing. Many freeze to death. Women who were barely surviving as laundresses or prostitutes lose their income entirely. Some starve. Some freeze. Some commit suicide. Children are abandoned by parents who can't feed them. Orphans wander the streets begging, stealing, dying. Native American communities already devastated by violence now face mass starvation. The game they relied on is hunted out. Their land is taken. They're left with nothing. And through it all, the wealthy are fine. The railroad barons, the land speculators, merchants, the politicians. They're insulated from the suffering, they profit from the chaos. This is the moment when the lie becomes undeniable. California isn't the land of opportunity. It's a grinder that chews up human lives and spits out bones. When spring finally comes, thousands are dead. Thousands more are permanently broken in body and spirit, and there's no memorial, no reckoning, no accountability. The dead are buried in unmarked graves and forgot. The survivors don't talk about it. They just keep moving because that's all they can do. This is what early California did to people. It broke them, it killed them, and it didn't care. Because in early California, if you were too weak to survive, that was your problem, not society's, yours. Now let's talk about your life. Right now, today, you woke up this morning in a building with heating or air conditioning. You walked to a bathroom with running water. You flushed a toilet. You washed your hands with soap. You turned on a faucet and drank clean water without worrying about cholera or typhoid. You opened a refrigerator and took out food that was safe, affordable, and regulated by health inspections. If you got sick, you could go to a doctor. You'd get antibiotics, pain relief, surgery if you needed it. You wouldn't die from a cut on your hand or a routine infection. If you lost your job, you wouldn't starve. There's unemployment insurance, food stamps, shelters, charities, imperfect, but they exist. If someone assaulted you, you could call the police. You could press charges. There are laws, courts. A justice system that, while flawed, at least theoretically protects everyone. If you're a woman, you have rights. You can vote, own property, work, leave an abusive relationship. You're not legally owned by your husband. If you're a child, you don't work, you go to school. There are laws protecting you from abuse and exploitation. If you're an immigrant, you have legal protections. You can't be killed with impunity. You can testify in court. You have a path to citizenship. You work 40 hours a week, not 80. You get weekends, paid time off, overtime pay, workplace safety regulations, workers' compensation if you're injured. The buildings you enter meet safety codes. The food you eat is inspected. The water you drink is treated. The medicine you take is tested and regulated. None of it existed in early California. Every comfort you take for granted, every right you assume is normal, every protection you barely think about, people fought for those. People died for those. And the world we live in now, imperfect as it is a miracle compared to what came before. Early California shows us what happens when there are no protections, no regulations, no compassion for the weak. It shows us what we escaped, and it should make you grateful. You are unbelievably lucky you weren't born in early California, not because you're special, but because you were born in a time and place that decided human life has value beyond how much work it can produce. The people who built California, the miners, the railroad workers, the laundresses, the children, the immigrants, didn't get to enjoy what they created. They suffered, they died, and most were forgotten, but their suffering bought you something. It bought you a world with labor laws, with public health, with civil rights, with safety nets, with the basic recognition that the weak deserve protection, not exploitation. It's not a perfect world. There's still inequality, still injustice, still suffering. But it's incomparably better than what came before. And the only reason it's better is because people looked at the horrors of places like early California and said, never again. We can do better than this. So the next time you complain about building codes or food regulations or labor laws or taxes that fund social programs, remember where we came from. Remember the children who died in mines, the women who were trafficked and discarded, the immigrants who were murdered for their race, the workers who were exploited until their bodies gave out. Remember that early California had no mercy for the weak. And be grateful, deeply, genuinely grateful, that we live in a world that at least tries. If this story made you think, consider watching our other documentaries about early American states. Because the more we remember what the past was really like, the better we can protect what we have now. Don't let anyone convince you to go back.